Siyanibingelela bazalwane egameni lika Jesu. Amen. Sinibingelele to another installment of 40 days of prayer. I'm not sure which day sikuwo, but I'm hopefully ngiyazwakala. I'm not sure if uSister Phumzile Zwane, I mean, if she's around. I see there's a Zoom user. I'm not sure who who that person is, because lapha akhona engakane Sister Zwane, she's load shedded, and therefore making it difficult for her to connect with us tonight. And therefore, I'm not sure what to corner, but oh, Sister Phakathi is here. We thank God for you. But I see Sister Ciliwe Khumalo has raised her hand. Ephakamise isandla. I'm not sure Sister Khumalo ukuthi mhlambe khona ofuna ukusilida kukho, or maybe kuthinteke ibutton. But since Sister Phakathi is here, but I don't see Sister Zwane, so which means she's finding it very difficult to connect with us. Yes, so in that case, I suppose ukuthi sizoqhubekela phambili. Hopefully, if she joins us, mhlambe she will share what she has to share for today. But ngaphambi nje ukuthi siqale sizogobisa amakhanda masithola umthandazo. Asigobiseni amakhanda sithola umthandazo. Siyakubonga Jehova. Siyakubonga usigcinile kwaze kwaba la. Usiphe lonye usuku. Silibonile Nkosi. Wasithwala kwaze kwaba isikhathi samanje. Yiba nathi-ke manje masiqala le nkonzo emfishane. Sengathi ungasipha umusa wakho, usiphe ukuthola kwakho ukuthi konke kuzothi kushiwo kudumisa igama lakho. NgoJesu siyathandaza. Amen. Amen and amen. All right. No, I still see Nyamuzu. Oh, okay. I think Sister Mshwana Prese ngephutha bengithi uyafakaza uzongena kwi-testimony. Siyawadinga ama-testimony bazalwane. I think ngama Fridays umamphakathi always leads us in testimonies, but I believe if kukhona phakathi kwethu on a testimony that wants to share, I think inkondlo ihlale ivuliwe. We always love testimonies. But anyway, while Sister Zwane, we'll see what happens as we go through the course of this service tonight. My joiner probably should join us. Mhlambe khona azoshare khona anakho uNkulunkulu akubeke enhlizweni yakhe. Mostly for me, bazalwane, I'm a substitute now and again. I'm a substitute, so I'll share. I don't really read the script nginaso, but because I never know when I'm going to be on. So whenever sometimes I'm on, it's always emergency. But ever since I started sharing, usually I share the significance of 40 days. Sugela, the first time I shared 40 days of prayer, I shared about Moses in the mountain, 40 days. I shared about Christ being in the wilderness for 40 days. I think there was another 40 days footer I shared. Now I just cannot think, but there was another 40 days of which I shared with, because 40 days of Babylon is very significant. It's very significant. But for tonight, I would like to share about the 40 days. First Samuel chapter 17, verse 16. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse First Samuel chapter 17, verse 16. Ufundeka kanje. So for 40 days, the Philistine came forward every morning and evening and took his stand. uNkulunkulu abusise ukufunda kwezilakhe kuze bephakathi. Amen. Now, this particular episode in the life of Israel in general, just the short background. Mofunda Samuel chapter 17 ukhuluma about David and Goliath. Now, as we know, by the time ifika Samuel chapter 17, Israel already has a king, but actually it has a captain in Saul. Lapho baya kuSamuel, who was the priest and the prophet ka-Israel. They said to him, nathi sifuna inkosi that will lead us to war and will be like other nations. And uNkulunkulu wathi kuSamuel, Samuel, give them what they want, because it's not you they are rejecting, but they are rejecting me. So banike inkosi. And so bayikhetha inkosi abayithola yaqhamuka esizweni saka Benjamin, igama lakho luSaul. iBhayibheli malikhuluma ngoSaul ukuthi he was the most handsome and tallest man in all of Israel. He was handsome to look at, and he was a captain. He was a brave man of valor. Indoda babeyithembile ukuthi masiye empini nayo le ndoda ngempela, we are assured ukuthi we will overcome. Now, what would happen at the time, isizwe kakhulu ka-Israel, that was a bit of a problem. Kwakuyisizwe sama-Philistines. Ama-Philistines, they were a thorn in the flesh yaga Israel. Isuka all the way from isikhathi sika Gideon, from Gideon kwakungamamediates, I mean from times ska Lupunja, this guy, the strong guy, Samson. They've always been there, and them being a nation abayiyo, they always had a problem nama-Philistines, because ama-Philistines ayengafuni ukuphume eKenani. They were just neighbors. They were always in conflict. And so it all happened at this particular time. Ama-Philistines, they had a giant, igama lakhe Goliath. Now, the significance, like mayiqala indaba lapha ku chapter 1 ka First Samuel chapter 17 verse 1, ukuthi they gathered their forces for war and assembled at Sokoh in Judah, and they pitched the tent. So ama-Philistines, they gathered, Judah, rather the Israel, they gathered because now they were fighting. And every morning for 40 days, kwaqhamuka le hlakela esiyindoda Goliath. And iBhayibheli malisho, this man was 3 meters tall. Now, for me, I like to consider myself a tall guy, but I stand, I'm 1.8 meters tall. I'm 1.1 meters tall. That's how tall I am. Now you can imagine umuntu who is 3 meters tall. And he was 3 meters tall. And he was a giant in a sense of the world. And a a giant, he was a champion. Now, iBhayibheli malikbeka as a champion, it means Goliath, he had victories under his belt. Why Dumile, as this man who has defeated many people, he was a giant. They don't even have to fight anyone because they have Goliath in their ranks. And Goliath at that time, there were 2 ways of fighting wars at that time. One was the nations, they fight. Then they fight. And then the other way of fighting, Babeta Amakos, they'll meet in the middle, terms, and then they'll say, right, bring your strong men, so bring our strong men, and then they will fight. Whoever wins, which means my army has won, and Nina will submit under us. Now that was the easiest way because it eliminated bloodshed, because many thousands and thousands did not have to die, only Kufa Oyedo. But though Kufa Oyedo, lo I champion yeneni tumela ukuthi ayihambi yosmela If they hlula, which means the whole nation it will be subjected to the victor. So it was a very risky proposition. It was a very risky thing to engage in. Ukuthi sizothumela oyedwa ahambe afike ayosilwela ayosimela mase bemhlulile, which means all of us we will be defeated. And so for 40 days, and another thing what Goliath did, because he ebahlulu Israel, he had a technical advantage. Goliath, one advantage is that he was a very tall guy, very, very tall. And being tall, he was intimidating. I'm sure Masbona Banti Dropen, especially these 2000s, they are very tall. I don't know, but they are very tall. I remember just not so long ago, at town, I was ngangihambele mo. Ngabona indoda ende, bazalwane yinde le yandoda. Yinde yazi ngaze ngayibuka ngama. Waze yabona na ukuthi I'm staring at this person because I was so amazed at how tall this person was. So Goliath had this tactical advantage. He's tall. Now, abantu who are very tall, they are very intimidating. The second thing Goliath that he used, ukuthi for 40 days, Mawifunda the whole chapter, before David comes in. I'm not going to talk about David, but I'm just going to talk about the Goliath for now. Ukuthi, why upa ukuthi mayiphuma ebathuka ka-Israel to intimidate them for 40 days. Why ngaphumi emini where everybody is out? But he chose specific times ukuthi akwenze. And iBhayibheli imalisho ukuthi wayebathuka ekuseni and ebathuka ntambama. And what was the significance of this? Now, if you go back Leviticus and even Exodus, Numbers, all the 5 books of Moses, especially the work of the sanctuary, uNkulunkulu had instituted to Israel a rule ukuthi abapriest, they should offer sacrifices in the morning before ilanga phume, and then just before at dusk ilanga shone. So there were 2 prayers that the priest offered on behalf of Israel during those times. So those times before sunset and before the sun is the priest would offer prayers. And the whole camp, during these times, there are sacred times every day without fail. Even on a Sabbath, offer a morning sacrifice and offer an evening sacrifice. And those were sacred times. So Goliath, because Babebaz, these nations were neighbors. So Goliath, why Puma, ngaleso skhat, where it was supposed to be morning or evening prayers. And while it's in their sacred time, in their sacred space, Goliath used to eba intimidator, ati letani, a strong man, a champion, leteni ezelagimi dizolwana. So instead of Israel ukuthi bahambe bayothandaza, but ngesikhathi semthandazo babelokhe bethukile bebheka lesidlakela lesisikhulu. So emini uGoliath whatever he was doing, but mase kuzofika isikhathi sama evening prayers, because even nama evening prayers used to happen during the time, even noma basempini babewenza ama evening prayers, they morning and evening prayers, they always used to do it. It was part of life ka-Israel. So why upha le khathi zomthandazo? Because why as Goliath, these guys, they are not functioning just like any other nation, even though they said they want to be like other nations, but they are not behaving like other nations. And therefore, why bathuka intimidate, disturbing their prayer life? Exen, Bible for 40 days. So you can imagine for 40 days while they were at the camp, Esoko, the men, Israel, they could not fight and they could not pray. Those are 2 things that they needed to do. And they couldn't because there was one man or intimidator and disturbing their prayer life. And Babe Wenza, he did it repeatedly. And in Jalo, Babe Wenza, Babe Vugek saying just before Ben Santanda was saying, Goliath is there, we have a threat nation. Before Ntambama Bayolan, Goliath is there, we have a threat nation, and their prayer life is gone. Now, what are the lessons that we can learn with the story, with 40 days, or Nzega? Because other 40 days I have mentioned before, ukuthi some of the things ubunjalo bethu buvela after the 40 days. If we've said 40 days we're going to do something, and then uNkulunkulu will protect us for 40 days, but we should not rest on our laurels, because after 40 days, who we are, it's going to be revealed after the 40 days. Because Moses, after 40 days, he was a short-tempered man, even though he was the meekest man ephila. But itemper yakhe washesha inhliziyo ukuhluthuka masinyane. Kwathi ephuma kulo 40 days waphula imithetho kaNkulunkulu. And we saw, and I'm trying to think, the last time I spoke about, after 40 days, naye he was tempted, not Jesu naye, he was tempted after 40 days. Kwathi ese lokhunja in the wilderness, kwathi ephuma in the wilderness, Satane wavela after 40 days. Wafika wazom-attacker ngento that was part of nature, ngendlala. What if you are the Son of God, turn these stones into bread? Now, Israel, what Goliath did, kulo 40 days, he was insulting them and disturbing their prayer life. And what do we find in this thing, Bazalwane? You know, sometimes Satan, it doesn't have to do much to destabilize us. And that is why Peter, Maikuluma, and writing his epistles, uti, therefore, brethren, be vigilant and be sober-minded, because Satan moves around like a roaming lion, efuna abantu azoba devour, you know, looking for people to devour. Therefore, we should be sober-minded. And sometimes Satan, the best thing aziyo, ukuthi he can never touch a Christian or ikholwa elithandaza. Angathinta noma yiliphi, but aziyo ukuthi he will have difficulty alithinte yileli elithandazayo. And so Satan, what he will normally do is to attack at the prayer life. As most families, and I like to believe that most families, see now my prayer times. Some families, but 6 o'clock, on your TV, it's family prayer. No make sense before you school. I remember we used to do it. This is a prayer time. But normally, Saturday, what he will do, because we ask, it is the strength that gives you confidence to face the day. If in the last day event, we are never safe outside the bounds of prayer. Our worship time, we should never compromise. What was Satan, what he would do? He would disturb the prayer time. And we ask, we have commitments. Some uzoyithola une late meeting, which means now your family, you can't be at home and praying. Sometimes alete indaba enkulu, you know, something that would knock you off your prayer schedule. Sometimes it's saying uthi uyavuka usubusy sebekufonela emsebenzini efaka kusheshe ufike and you cannot pray. And usathani uzokwenza uzoyifaka kancane. Sometimes uzoskip prayer uthi hayi I'll catch up later as ngifike officeini ngithandaza. Uthi uyafika e-officeini sebekulindile sister banibani woza hey nakho sekubusy, and you go the whole day ungathandazanga. And usathane will bring business into our lives. Even noma ungenzi lutho, still usathane will let business maybe akwenza ukuthi ulale late uvuke late mawazi ukuthi ngo-6 uyathandaza, uthi uyavuka ubheka ifoni usunama WhatsApp amaningi, just before you pray usuqalile attending to those WhatsApp and calls, uphendula ama-calls, and usay disturb prayer life. And by the time after 10 days or 20 days, usuthandaza noma kanjani, and sometimes well, you understand, and when you forget, uNkulunkulu is not the one who needs prayer, it's us who need prayer. And manje usuhamba as a call elingathandazi, and if you call elingathandazi, it is weak. And now imagine awuthandazi because your prayer life has been disturbed. And manje fanele ulwe, because usathane uzobeka ihibe emsebenzini, uzobeka ihibe esikolweni, uzobeka ihibe la ekhaya, uzobeka ihibe everywhere you go. And now you cannot pray. You cannot face this thing. So now usuzoyisaba into encane, uzosaba impukane. uzosaba ukuthi uzumsindo omncane. Whereas if you are continuing as a prayerful Christian, uyazi ukuthi noma uzumsindo omncane mhlawumbe nje amakati noma izinto ezibangumsindo usuzophuma nesiqwayi, because now you have forgotten that the one who watches over Israel watches over you. But because awusathandazi usumkhohliwe ukuthi lo ngalala ongazeli ubheka uIsrael ubhekile nawe, wena usuzophuma nesiqwayi uyigadele, because your prayer life has been disturbed. Ususaba into ezincane, you are going around, you are over the edge, ithempe, umnjalo bakho usephumile, and usathane lapha kufuna khona. And once wakuthola vulnerable because he has disturbed your prayer life, useyazi usengenza noma yini ngawe, you have no backup. And so what I'm trying to say, bazalwane, and bring it to us into our realization, ukuthi yebo usathane, and if you've noticed, as we've started this 40 days of prayer, ukuthi usathane has used means that are beyond our control to disturb our prayer life. Just as although we could not come in because we had load shedding, khona abanye who are unable to come in because kuno load shedding, and the load shedding le engekho stable, at least kwakhona isikhathi lapho wazi ukuthi hayi load shedding it will be just 2 days siphelile. This one is unstable, awazi ubheka ngokusifona uEskom usengashintsha lokho. Those are the things usathane, because we ask ukuthi when the Christians are praying, there is power. And as you told up lapho bawufunda incwadi kaActs, nangu Peter uboshiwe ejele. Mayiboshiwe uPeter ejele, iBhayibheli lithi the believers were praying while Peter was in prison. Even engelosi simkhipha uPeter ejele, the time uHerod ebulala uJames ubhuti kaJohn, imkhipha ejele, uPeter goes to where abaKristu ayihlangene khona ithandaza. And emabenqonqothi iBhayibheli lithi la bathi enqonqothi uPeter, the believers were praying, because there is power in personal prayer, power in collective and corporate prayer. So what we do, whatever we do, bazalwane, even noma singangenanga kwiZoom due to the circumstances that are beyond our control, but we should know ukuthi kulo 40 days we have an appointment with God. If load shedding ishaya kusasa, faneke sazi ukuthi ngo6 o'clock we have an appointment with God and we are going to pray. And by doing this, we are telling Satan, good Satan, you can control ezinye izinto, but one thing you cannot touch, you can never touch our spirituality. And if you cannot touch our spirituality, which means asengenza noma yini, there's actually nothing he can do to destabilize us, because a destabilized Christian is much more dangerous than a Christian, especially dangerous to himself and herself, than a Christian who prays. And so, bazalwane, let us remember, ukuthi our prayer life is as important as everything. And you can never fight umelane nesitha nehibe usathane ayibekile endleleni yethu, because siyazi ukuthi usathane ume nathi. So bazalwane, let us always remember ukuthi for 40 days, and as you keep on reading, and I don't want to really take away from this text, because I think it is very important. Now, as I mentioned, Saul, when Saul was appointed king, he was a captain. But if you go back a previous chapter, chapter 16, uNkulunkulu has anointed David as king, right? Now, if you go back to the previous chapter, chapter 15, you'll discover that God had rejected Saul, because Saul khona izinto azenza wenza umhlatshelo eningi izinto nje uSaul ayenza ezingahambelani noNkulunkulu, and God rejected him. Now, as he was rejected, he was he was still a Hebrew, he was still a Benjamite, he was still an Israelite, but he was rejected by God. Umoya kaNkulunkulu wasungekho kuSaul. Yiko wayenze izinto. By the time uGoliath efika la, uSaul would not have stood. Ngoba kwakufanele kuphuma uSaul athi Saul wena Goliath ngizokuthatha, because why no moya kaNkulunkulu? But because God had already rejected, he couldn't stand. And Goliath was a champion. Saul was a captain. So almost these two were champions. And this is my proposition, if God had not yet rejected Saul, Saul would have had the strength to fight Goliath and overcome. But by the time ifika la chapter 17, Saul was rejected. David is a new king. umoya kaNkulunkulu awusekho kuSawuli, and naye uSawuli uyithole esaba. Njengabo bonke amabutho kaIsrayeli babebuka uGoliath ebathunga, naye uSawuli is as frightened as everybody because umoya kaNkulunkulu was not with him. So the lesson that we can perhaps get tonight, bazalwane, as we are going through this 40 days and 40 nights, 40 days of prayer. Let us not compromise in our prayer times. We can compromise as easy, but our personal prayer time, especially as a family, even as a corporate, let us not, because because my shy everything will fall. Because you are a good preacher. Because when we aziwa as this administrative person, make shy your prayer time. And our prayer time, bazalwane, is very yebo siyatandaza. iBhayibheli lithi pray without ceasing. Pray wherever you are. Usemotweni uyadriver, pray everywhere. Use-ofisini, useklasini, wherever usekhaya, pray all the time. But what is also most important is your family and prayer time. Oyibekele wena uNkulunkulu. Uthi mawuthi uyibekele ngo-6 ekuseni, try and make nothing come between your prayer life. uJesu was able to withstand izinto, ama-temptations, nama-challenges awathola kwi-ministry yakhe, all because i-prayer time yakhe was never disturbed. And so, bazalwane, that is also what I'm bringing to you this evening. Ukuthi our prayer time, let us be careful, look, 40 days, ukuthi nothing disturbs the momentum, nothing disturbs this equilibrium. Even noma singangenanga kwi-Zoom for whatever challenges, Eskom or whatever, phela ama-data network and everything. But as a family, even noma uhleli wedwana ekhaya, uqa uthandaze, because it's your special time. It's your evening and morning prayers. And we will have power. We will able to fight and stand. And ngeke kube lula ukuthi isitha sisixabanise. Ngeke kube lula ukuthi isitha sisitshene sisihlebele izinto, because we are prayerful. So let us be careful. For 40 days, impi ka-Israel ayimile. Imagine 40 days, imile impi akuliwa. Kuphuma nje indoda eyodwa, ilokhu iyabathuka nje, iyabathuka. Kwaze wafika umfana omncane. Wathi ubani lo othuka impi kaNkulunkulu ophilayo? And we know how the story ended, but we will talk about that in the next coming days. Sengathi uNkulunkulu bazalwana angasikusiza. Let us keep in our minds ukuthi our prayer time as families and as a corporate body, it is very important. It says in the last 2 years, Satan had disturbed our corporate meeting time. Ama-Sabbath, we could not meet corporately, and he disturbed the momentum such that because they never saw the reason, the need to come back. But we should pray for them, pray for ourselves, because we sell in that momentum. You might not take us back how we used to do things in the past, but please bring us back, because a praying Christian, a praying church, a praying family is a strong community. But if we are not praying, standards are whenever we're gonna be in trouble. ngoJesu siyathandaza. Amen. Esikhathini samanje ngizocela umama Phakathi to come in, mhlawumbe uzosale sesivalela ngomthandazo, and perhaps give us ama announcement if she is able. uNkulunkulu asibusise bazalwane. Amen.
Amen bazalwane, sabusiseka uNkulunkulu wasondla ngelizwi lakhe elingcwele ezichaza ezendlala phambi kwethu, esibonisa umusa wakhe omkhulu. Siyabonga mfundisi nanokusikhumbuza ukuthi in these 40 days njengoba sibekile isikhathi ukuthi sizohlangana ngo-6 every day, we've got an appointment with God. So God is waiting for us at that time that we come before his throne, and no one can take away that from us, because it depends on us ukuthi we honor that appointment and pray, even as individuals, noma kuthiwa asihlangananga, but if we honor that time to pray, and also our prayer times as families and also in the church as corporate, singawathatheli phansi ngoba kwesinye isikhathi sesiyaya nje enkonzweni kodwa we don't feel like people who've got an appointment with the maker of the world ukuthi siyohlangana naye, we are taking our cares to him. Uma sibuya sizobe singasayithweli imithwalo esisuke nayo emakhaya ekuseni, ngokuba sobe sesiyinike uJehova wayithatha wayilahlela kude, wasethula ijoko esilithwele. Siyabonga kakhulu, uNkulunkulu abe nathi. Bengizocela nje uSister Khumalo, I think usekhona la, ukuthi asivalele ngomkhuleko. Sister Khumalo, ngicela u-unmute usithandazele.
Ngicela sivala amehlo. Baba wethu osekhaya ezulwini, sey'ndaweni zonke, siyakubonga Nkosi yethu Jesu Kristu. Sibonga Nkosi yami ithuba elihle osihlelele lona langa lokulunga. Asifanele Jehova, kodwa umusa wakho senzela wona Nkosi yami. Siyakubonga sikuphakamisa ukuthi sizwe izwi lakho lisikhumbuza Nkosi yami, ngoba ngokuhamba kwesikhathi siyalibala. Sicela-ke Nkosi yami sisize, siphakame size kuwe Jehova, ngoba usasilindile. Futhi Nkosi yami lo mkhuleko usaqhubeka, sicela Nkosi yami siphe Jehova ukuthi ngempela zishintshe iy'milo zethu. Sibonakale Nkosi yami siya ngokuya sisondela Baba olungileyo, ngoba masibheka isikhathi sithi Nkulunkulu wami isikhathi asisekho. Okwethu Baba olungileyo kuba sihlale ebukhoneni bakho ngempela Jehova. Siyakunxusa-ke ilanga lokulunga kuba sisize Nkosi yami ngamunye, kuthi Nkosi yami nxa sizolala sidlinza ngalamazwi abaluleke kangaka. Sibonakale Jehova olungileyo, siphenduka siguquka sifana nawe. Sibusise-ke Nkosi yami, ubusise nomfundisi Nkosi yami, izwi asiphe lona. Ubusise bonke Jehova abantwana bakho lapho bekhona Nkosi yami. USathane uyasilwisa, akafuni Baba senze intando yakho, kodwa sicela usiphe amandla Baba, usithethelele konke Nkosi yami okungamathize, ususe Baba lonke uchoko lwesono, udale kithi iy'dalwa ezintsha. Siyakunxusa-ke Baba, usilalise ngokuthula sonke ngoJesu Nkosi yethu, amen.
Amen bazalwane, siyabonga uNkulunkulu nathi. uSister uZwane ubezosiphathela namhlanje, kuye kwangabikho ugesi, ugcine engakwazanga ukungena, uyaxolisa kakhulu. Kodwa-ke uNkulunkulu uzomsebenzisa ngelinye ilanga ubani asabele ilizwi lakhe. Emkhulekweni wethu, ecelweni zomkhuleko, ikakhulukazi namhlanje sithandazela ukuthi uNkulunkulu asembathise i-righteousness kaJesu Kristu, ngokuba thina ngesingathi sinemizimba yethu egcwele isono enobubi. So as we pray njengoba si-encourage ukuthi let us keep connected to God, let us be in prayer all the time, so that then sizothabatha le nkazimulo kaJesu Kristu, asembathise ngobungcwele bakhe uJesu Kristu ukuze sifaneleke. So we're doing this sikholwa ukuthi izothi phela le 40 days sizobe singabantu abehlukile in our spiritual life. uNkulunkulu uzobe esibusisile. And also then pray for those 7 names. I hope everyone still remembers and is faithful in praying for those 7 names. Singabi discouraged. Lawo magama esibesithe abantu esithe sizobakhulekela, uNkulunkulu uzowenza umahluko, whether uwenza namhlanje umahluko or uwenza after 60 years or 10 years, it's up to God. But nje one thing esiqinisekiswe ngayo ukuthi uNkulunkulu uzowenza umahluko. Siyabonga bazalwane. Good night till we meet tomorrow.